Well, actually, it's due to both historical and contemporary issues for sure, because historically, trauma from residential schools and colonial education policies that aim to assimilate or erase Indigenous culture has left deep-seated mistrust. So in contemporary settings, that distrust is exacerbated by ongoing challenges such as cultural misrepresentation in curricula, experiences of racism and discrimination in schools, lack of cultural competency amongst the educators. It could also be insufficient involvement of Indigenous communities in the educational decision making. So addressing those issues comprehensively is actually fundamental for building trust and creative, inclusive, and respectful educational environments. Strategies that could be looked at, including providing ongoing professional development for educators on Indigenous cultures and history, hire Indigenous staff for the enrichment of the educational environment. We can also incorporate Indigenous perspectives in curriculums and collaborate with communities to develop that content to reflect their histories and their contribution, and support also the preservation and teaching of the languages, the Indigenous languages. We can also look at engaging with Indigenous communities and establishing strong and ongoing partnerships with some communities, and involve those communities in school governance, for example, or host events with them that celebrate Indigenous cultures. Other strategies could be to support the Indigenous students and offer culturally informed support services, create safe spaces in schools, and engage with their culture directly. Promoting reconciliation activities can also be a strategy, and also set up clear feedback mechanisms for Indigenous communities to implement accountability measures to ensure that commitments to educational improvements are fulfilled. So the feedback is also a great way to get that trust being built. So it's important to keep it on ongoing communication, on a bilateral communication, and get also involvement on a long-term basis, and not only on a punctual basis. The first thing an educator needs to do is actually actively learn about the local Indigenous cultures and histories, the contemporary issues of the local communities, and show respect for those practices and traditions. I also suggest that there be an engagement with the community by participating in local events, for example, and involving in Indigenous families in the educational process, ensuring the family's perspectives are valued in their children's education. There's personal relationships that could be built as well through active listening, demonstrating consistency with and reliability and interactions with the student. So establishing personal connections with students is a good idea, and also to integrate Indigenous perspectives into the teacher's curriculum, and collaborate again with the community members or Indigenous students or the community at large, to ensure the content is culturally appropriate and respectful to the community. There's also other ways that we could look at, is to address any forms of discrimination, establishing safe and inclusive school environments, and develop policies for that, and provide specific supports to Indigenous students who need them. And also, again, I always say that is that to regularly seek feedback from the communities on how the practices, the education practices within the school or with the teacher, can actually reflect exactly what the aim that we are looking at is, to establish trust and have safe spaces for students. So ask them if what they think and what their feedback is. So it's always ways to improvement, and it's the best way to find out if your actions will reach their goal. No, it is not always, unless the person actually declares himself or herself as an Indigenous person. But you can't assume that anyone would just want to be, pointed as an Indigenous person. So what's important is to let the person express himself or herself about that. I don't think it's, it would be appropriate for anyone to actually point out or make someone feel uncomfortable in identifying a person as an Indigenous person. Let the person do it.
True inclusion comes with the normalizations of our perspectives and being invited to the table on anything that pertains to us or which may impact us. Most non-Indigenous people learn about things that happened to us, but not about who we are as people. Reconciliation is the reparation of a relationship, but how can you begin to repair a relationship that has not yet been built? We're sharing our land with you. Be our neighbor. What does it mean to be a good neighbor? Visit our communities. Join us for public events like powwows. Follow Indigenous creators on social media platforms. Invite us as guests to your schools without any expectations for us to perform or give something to you. Don't limit relationships with us to transactional encounters. We are people of reciprocity. Find a way to build a relationship with us where everyone benefits from knowing and being with the other. Miigwech.